Hello everyone, welcome back to All Financial Discussion channel. For this video, I'm going to continue the discussion on CPF retirement. There are actually two objectives for this video. So when you actually reach at the age of 55, I'm going to explain what will actually happen if, let's say, your OA plus your SA is actually fall short of the basic retirement scheme. So this will be the first objective. So next, okay, I'm going to explain how can we actually use this method, okay, which is called the OA shielding, in order for us to keep more cash in our OA. So all this will be the objective of this video. Before we reach 55 years old, in fact, we have three accounts with CPF. We have the OA, we also have the SA, and we also have the MA. So when we actually reach 55 years old, what actually happened is our SA account will be closed. And in fact, CPF will open another account, which is RA, retirement account. So in short, whatever money that you have SA, okay, they will be transferred to RA. Let's say there is surplus, okay, so basically SA will transfer to RA, and whatever that is surplus will be transferred to OA, which I'm going to explain in this series of discussion on CPF retirement account. When you actually reach 55 years old, you need to choose one of the three. Okay, so basically under the CPF retirement scheme, we have the BRS, FRS, and ERS. By default, okay, CPF actually will choose FRS for you. However, okay, because of certain issue, there is no one size fit all. Okay, some of us may in fact forced to choose BRS. In this table here, you can see that the three tier BRS, FRS, and enhanced retirement sum, you can see that the amount that you actually contribute, okay, so in fact for BRS is the lowest. However, you are only able to get 950 money payout after the age 65 years old onward. So from here, you can see that under BRS, we contribute the least, but we also got the least money payout. So based on this table here, these three criteria, we need to decide which retirement scheme will be most suitable for us, which I'm going to explain further. Next, I'm going to explain the criteria for you to choose BRS. Let's say, okay, your SA in fact can meet the criteria of FRS. So in fact, you can still choose BRS. However, okay, you need to meet these three conditions. In short, all these three conditions must be met before you can choose BRS instead of FRS. The first condition is you need to own a resident property. Okay, for example, okay, you can actually has a HDB flat or a private resident property. Okay, keep this in mind. Your property need to be fully paid out, which means that you should not serve any mortgage. Second, okay, you need to meet a property pledge, okay, which means that you in fact pledge your property to CPF as a form of retirement support. So let's say something happened to you, in fact, your property will act as a backup source for your retirement income. Next, okay, your property need to meet the CPF lease requirement. So in short, in general, the remaining lease should be sufficient to cover you at around the age 95. So in short, if you want to choose BRS instead of FRS, you need to ensure that you need to meet all these three conditions. Next, I'm going to explain when you actually cannot choose BRS. Earlier on, I mentioned that you need to meet all the three conditions before you can choose BRS instead of FRS. So now, okay, for example, okay, if you do not own a qualified property, then you are not able to choose BRS. Next, if your property does not qualify for a CPF property pledge, then again, you may not be able to choose BRS. For example, the lease remaining of your property does not meet the requirement, then again, definitely you cannot choose BRS. Last but not least, for some, okay, they actually want to leave the property for their so-called next generation. So hence, they are less reluctant to pledge the property. So if any of these conditions are not met, therefore you are forced to choose FRS. Okay, so basically in this situation, okay, CPF will require you to choose FRS, okay, to be set aside in your retirement account. So how they actually so-called force you is basically the CPF saving above the requirement sum then can be withdrawn. So in short, if let's say if you don't meet the BRS, whatever, okay, that is at the SA will be transferred to RA, and if let's say it's not enough, some amount or maybe all the amount at the OA will be transferred into RA, which I'm going to further discuss later on. Let me use a scenario so that you are able to understand better. So for example, when you actually reach at the age of 55, and let's say your CPF balance are as following. So under OA, you have 40K. Under SA, you have 30K. So let's say you choose BRS. And in order to fulfill this BRS, you need to set aside amongst roughly about 110K. So basically, let me explain in deep detail. So when you actually turn 55 years old, CPF will automatically create a RA account. So how does the fund actually transfer? Firstly, the fund will be transferred from SA. So when you actually reach 55 years old, your SA account will be closed. The money inside your SA, for example, for this case here, will be transferred to RA. Okay, so 30K will transfer to RA. Now, from here, you can see that this 30K is not able to fulfill the BRS, which require about 110K. So therefore, for this situation here, whatever amount in your OA will be transferred to RA. So in this case here, for example, SA 30K, OA 40K. So in total, okay, under this RA, I will have 70K from both the SA and OA. So this is actually the scenario. Okay, so one thing I like to highlight, okay, for example, under this case here, you can see that even with 70K, you are not able to meet the criteria of BRS, which require around 110K. So basically, you can also withdraw up to 5K subject to approval. Although you have not really meet the criteria of BRS, subject to approval, you may be able to withdraw up to 5K from the OA account. Under the condition of this scenario one, for example, okay, you can see that this CPF member actually contribute to the RA from both the SA and also the OA. However, from here, you can see that it still falls short of the criteria of BRS, which need almost around 110K. So one important note that I want to share is you are not required to do any form of top-up because of the shortfall to reach the BRS or even to the FRS. So in short, your RA will simply contain whatever retirement saving you have available at the age of 55 years old. Under this scenario one, for example, okay, all the amount from the SA and also the OA will contribute to the RA because it failed to meet the criteria of BRS. So in short, CPF members who do not meet the BRS can in fact still receive the retirement payout later. The key difference is that their payout will be lower because since they have lesser saving in the RA. So next, what I'm going to discuss is the age between 55 years old and 65 years old. Okay, so because RA is in fact created at the age of 55 years old, so in fact, for most of us, I believe we will be still working, and again, we will be contribute to the CPF. So next, I'm going to discuss what actually will happen between age 55 and 65. So for example, your RA will continue to earn your CPF interest, as you can see from here. Okay, so basically these are the CPF interests. As a result, okay, your retirement saving will continue to grow even if you have not made any additional contribution. But just keep this in mind, when we are actually before at the age of 55 years old, we actually contribute to SA. So now, whatever amount that we actually contribute to the SA, in fact, will be contribute to RA. Okay, so the amount accumulate in your RA by the time the payout start is in fact one of the key factors that determines your future monthly retirement income. Next, I'm going to explain, okay, maybe a lot of you guys are actually in doubt. Okay, so what actually will happen to your CPF contribution if you continue to work after the age of 55 years old? Keep this in mind, your SA has already been closed, okay, at the age of 55. So when you actually continue to work after age 55, what actually will happen? Okay, so again, this will focus under the scenario 1. Okay, so under the scenario 1, your RA, in fact, has not reached the BRS criteria. Okay, so basically, this is what I have mentioned early on. Okay, so basically, when you actually at the age of 55, under your RA, in fact, you have 70K, under your OA is $0, under your SA, in fact, will be closed. So let's say if you continue to work, okay, again, you will be able to have some form of CPF contribution. So in short, okay, so after you reach 55 years old, okay, in fact, you have some form of CPF contribution. The money will go to OA. The money will also go to RA. The money will also go to MA. So basically, in short, over here, however, okay, because you have not reached the criteria of BRS, CPF may transfer the eligible retirement saving into the RA according to CPF rule. So this is actually the scenario. Okay, what happens if you still continue to work after the age of 55 years old? Some money will in fact be transferred to OA, and in fact, you can use this OA to pay your housing loan or to have some so-called some form of investment under the OA account. Let me explain the possible outcome when you actually reach the age of 65 under the scenario 1 situation. So in fact, over time, your RA may grow from 70K onward. Okay, so basically you will be able to earn your interest. Maybe you do some form of top up. Next, your OA may still accumulate fund since after the age of 55 years old, if you still continue to work, you will be able to have some form of so-called CPF contribution. So under this OA, they can be used for housing or investment. Next, your MA will continue to grow until it reaches the prevailing basic healthcare sum. So the key takeaway, having less than the BRS at age 55 does not mean that you will lose your access to CPF retirement payout from the CPF Life. Okay, so in fact, CPF will still create an RA account with the saving you have. For example, under this scenario 1, the saving from SA and OA will be contribute to RA. Your balance will be able to continue to earn interest, and you can still receive your retirement income later at the age of 65. The main difference is that eventually CPF life payout will generally be lower than those that actually so-called able to reach the BRS. A quick disclaimer, this is not a financial advice. Please conduct your own independent research and consult a professional if needed. Never invest more than you're willing to lose. With this, we are ready to kickstart today's discussion. But before that, I'd like to urge you guys to help me by like this video. Guys, if you have learned something from this video, urge you to help me by like this video. Guys, it's free. Help me. Press the like button now. For those who are new to this channel, and if you want to support me, please consider to subscribe and turn on your notification bell. Once again, thank you so much for strong support. Next, I'd like to explain what is actually OA shielding. Okay, but before we actually discuss on OA shielding, okay, I'd like to discuss quickly for SA shielding. In fact, okay, SA shielding, in fact, is a very popular topic to discuss. However, okay, at the year of 2025, CPF, in fact, has closed this loophole. Okay, because after this 2025, your SA account will be closed. So therefore, it doesn't exist anymore. So therefore, we do not have any form of SA shielding anymore. However, okay, we can apply this SA shielding onto OA shielding. So let me discuss in a little bit detail for you to understand what is actually OA shielding. Okay, so in fact, OA shielding is an informal CPF planning strategize where a member try to preserve more money, okay, under their OA account when RA account is created at the age of 55. Let me explain. Okay, so these are the key points. When you actually reach at the age of 55, CPF will automatically create your RA account. So the RA account is fund first from your SA, which I have explained under the scenario 1. And if let's say it's not enough, then from your OA will be transferred to your RA. So let's say if your SA account balance alone is enough to fully fund the RA, hence no OA shielding is needed because your OA won't be used at all. OA shielding, in fact, is most commonly used under this situation. Okay, so under your situation when your SA is not enough to meet the retirement sum. So over here, you can see two set of diagram. One is without OA shielding. This is with OA shielding. Like I mentioned earlier on, okay, so once you reach 55 years old, your SA account will be closed. So whatever that is inside your SA will be transferred to RA. So let's say, for example, for this case here, okay, if you don't meet the criteria, okay, so therefore the amount inside your OA will be also transferred to RA. Okay, so this is with OA shielding. So what happened here is basically just before you're 55 years old, you do some form of low risk investment, for example, bond. Okay, because you have shift some of your so-called fund into this low risk investment. So when you actually reach 55 years old, for example, under this situation, you in fact have lesser money in the OA. So lesser money will be transferred to OA. So let's say after you so-called serve your 55 years old birthday, again, you can transfer your low risk investment back into RA. Okay, so basically this is what is known as OA shielding. Okay, so let me explain, okay, with more detail. You temporarily invest some of your OA saving under the CPF investment scheme before you actually turn 55 years old. Okay, so keep this in mind. You must do this before you turn so-called 55 years old. Okay, since the invest OA money is not longer sitting as cash in the OA, less of it will be available to transfer into RA, which I explained early on. After the RA has been formed, you sell off the investment and the proceeds are again credit back to your OA. With this, you can see that I will have more money inside my OA account. Coming to my last slide for today's video. Okay, why do people still use the OA shielding? There are in fact two reasons. One is they want to keep more money in the OA so that they are able to do some form of housing, so-called mortgage or investment purpose. Another reason is they want to maintain greater flexibility over how those CPF savings are used. So therefore, in order to achieve this OA shielding, they need to reduce the amount that is actually transferred from the OA to RA as much as possible when they actually reach at the age of 55 years old. So next, Okay, I'm going to explain is OA shielding as common as SA shielding. Okay, so in fact the answer is no. OA shielding is not that popular. Why? Okay, so in fact in the old days, SA shielding in fact is generally discussed more often. Okay, why? Because SA saving actually earn a higher interest rate as compared to OA and also RA. So therefore, many members actually prefer to preserve their so-called saving into SA account. Next, the RA is fund from the SA first, okay, because the amount from RA is firstly from SA first, and because of this, when we able to shield this SA, this is more relevant for many people. However, okay, like I mentioned earlier on, at the year of 2025, okay, the CPF in fact closed this loop. When we actually reach at the age of 55 years old, your SA account will be closed. So therefore, okay, SA shielding cannot be applied anymore because it will be closed when we actually reach the age of 55 years old. To do a quick conclusion, OA shielding is only useful, okay, if your RA would otherwise need to draw on your OA saving. Like I mentioned earlier on, under the so-called condition one, criteria one, okay, when your SA transfer over to your RA, which is not enough to meet the criteria of BRS, then the amount on OA will be required to transfer to RA. So what happened here is basically OA shielding means that before you actually reach 55 years old, you do some form of low risk investment. You transfer your fund from OA to the investment. So once you reach 55 years old, lesser money will be inside your OA. So in fact, because of this, again, lesser money will be transferred over to your RA. So from here, you can see that you actually preserve more money, okay, in the OA account so that you can use it for housing, mortgage, or some form of investment. Okay, so basically this is what is all about OA shielding. Okay, so like SA shielding, okay, OA shielding in fact is not an official CPF so-called guideline. However, in general, this is actually allowed. But keep this in mind, you need to carry out in according with CPF rules and also CPF investment scheme. With this, I'd like to end my discussion. Please help me to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Once again, thank you so much for your strong support. I hope to see you guys soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much.